It must be really painful personal stories. I know so many people have those stories right now. So thank you. So I'm going to open it up. Thank you to all of you for questions. I ask that you keep your questions to a question, right? I mean, no long commentary, although, right? Yeah, so I'm going to open it up and please just identify yourself. I mean, you don't have to give your full name, but like, are you here at Georgetown? What's your relationship to the institution? Yeah.
Hey, Salam, my name is Radwan. I'm a student at the University of Maryland. I wanted to ask, actually with the last comment that was made, do you think that there are any potential prospects for like de-escalation, and what do you think the role of the Arab world is?
I mean, we've both been in meetings, as he said, with different elected officials, with the State Department, with, it's no exaggeration, and this is verbatim, their words. This administration, literally, they were telling us, we're just giving them the space to do what they need to do. When we pressed them and said, what is it that they need to do? Like, what's the benchmark? You know, what boxes need to be checked? Is there a number? Is there a certain? And then we said, what does the day after look like? Literally, they told us, we don't have a plan. We have no idea. And we keep asking the Israelis for, what's your plan? And then they had the audacity to say to us, do you guys have any input on what should happen after? Okay. So this is when people say to me, and as Hani said, I didn't start with that, but my entire family was there. My whole neighborhood was destroyed on the second day. Rimal, all of it. It was the beating heart of all of the strip.
The Georgetown of Gaza, you know.
I mean, it was, yes, I mean, without exaggeration, all the most beautiful part, every part of Gaza is beautiful to me, but it was where all the cafes were, the bookstores, the parks where I took my son, that's all gone. You know, we lost 15 members of my mother's family just overnight like that. But this is what, I mean, we're on a group of 400 people, and every few minutes we look and someone says, my mother and aunt and all her families, and then we barely have time to say condolences, and then a second later someone says, and all 40 members of my family died too, and this is literally all day. And so, but to your point, to your question, you know, I keep saying ceasefire has become a dirty word in all circles now. In my conversations with the most left-leaning of senators, I could not even get them to say the word. I kid you not. They were trying their hardest to, they didn't even say it. When I asked them about it, when I mentioned it, they kept going around and saying, Israel is hurt. Israel has a right to defend itself. We understand that what I've been spending 9 hours in the morning doing is ensuring that Palestinians in southern Gaza get more than 1.5 liters of water. This is the conversations we're having. Not why is America okay with Israel turning the water off to start with. And when we pressed the State Department on this, the response we got was, we got them to turn one pipe on. And so there's not even, ceasefire isn't even it's a non-option. They're not even, but the word that I have been hearing being pushed in policy circles is, well, can we at least get them to work towards de-escalation? And so, you know, to answer your question in a more sort of realistic tone, what we've been trying to get the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and others now is to work at least at introducing de-escalation as a baby step towards ceasefire. But they're so unhinged. I feel like there's a mass psychosis right now, seriously. And the US is just, it's no longer just enabling, it's actively aiding and abetting on all fronts, you know, psychological warfare, political, financial, military, in what's lies of omission. I mean, everything. It's just on a completely different scale. And this is what scares me more than anything else, because anything is possible right now, because they're allowing them to make anything possible. And things that we never thought we would see elected officials. There's always like the fringe elements, right, of government saying things. But when you have the defense minister standing up and saying, we will be collectively punishing everyone, and then our administration is saying, go for it. You know what I mean? That to me is really terrifying. It's really terrifying.
Please.
Yeah, please go ahead.
First, I want to thank you for being here, because I tried to like wrap my mind around what you are going through, and I literally can't do it. And government is complicit, more complicit, as you say in that. So I had the pleasure of meeting Yasser Abu-Jamai earlier this year, and I'm just thinking of things in a second. But I want to start with a question, like specifically from Asma Kaisi, who worked for UNRWA and is a diplomat in Belgium. Says we now have 50,000 women in Gaza who are pregnant or about to deliver with no access whatsoever to basic health services and primary health care. I guess this is a question for the body, what does UNRWA have to say about this? And he says, my brain is literally boiling. I can feel the ringing voice in my ears. That thing is like, what can we do? Because like, I mean, Biden said today that he doesn't trust the civilian death toll numbers. You know, like Jesus Christ, and I've been trying to talk to congressmen and writing up like international law, human rights-based arguments. I've been talking to Mark Warner, for example, but they're just not entertaining any of it. So like, what do we do about that? And
If the cracks this 500 women will deliver babies in Gaza. There is 50,000 pregnant, 500. Can you imagine how stressful it is where you're supposed to be joyful and then you have another person to feed? So there is about it's 12 UNRWA clinics still operating. UNRWA does not really deliver kids, but they have the best program in baby vaccination and the health department. It is not an ideal situation. I think we can the midwife phase, you know, new refugee shelters they have. UNRWA was under a lot of stress, not just the staff from UNRWA. They destroyed 45 facilities for UNRWA, buildings that the Israelis have to coordinate for. They were told the UN buildings, they still bombed them. It wasn't was almost a bunker the US government built inside the UNRWA headquarters last summer.
which we should thank them for, right?
60 lives were spared because they were there, and now they have to go move south. So I don't know. There is a lot of things UNRWA can be doing, but without the fuel, none of it matters. If you don't have fuel to run the hospital, the Indonesian hospital, my family's home in Gaza, I received care in July. I was impressed by the staff and how much they tried to do. Yesterday, they were operating in the dark for a few hours. They're running out of fuel. You can't get anywhere without fuel.
So Stonewall fuel, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, but remember, UNRWA does primary care. There's other hospitals that do that delivery. Don't envy anybody who can do that. Imagine somebody with a dialysis. My uncle has dialysis. How is at a distance, right? Now, and what you can do first, if you are into this, pray. It's bigger than all of us. The president out of the blue bashes the Palestinians. I don't know, anyway, we could talk about what does that mean for his 2024 prospects, but write letters to the editor and the media. That's where my hope is. Government is beyond helpless. You could pressure them. And I want to salute people who've been doing media appearances because it does change the narrative a little bit. You remember in the first week after Hamas attacked those people and killed them, you want to have to be the billion person to say it was bad. Everybody said that. So, with the Palestinians, maybe we will say that. Anyway, just stay engaged with this. Rallies, literally, we met with Blinken 2 days ago, and outside there was some youth movement doing a rally against Blinken. We also joined the rally. So it's all of the above approach. I work in philanthropy. I tell people to support UNRWA USA. That's another approach, but not one approach is the wrong answer. And
Now, do you want? I don't want to spend too long on this, but my uncle is an OBGYN and fertility specialist, and he's been saying women have been asking for elective C-sections on the days that it's calmer because they don't want to be in a situation where they have to suddenly deliver. So yeah, that's the situation with that. There was reports also of women trying to take birth control and other things to suppress their menstrual cycles. In terms of what you can do, yeah, I mean, maybe Jehad, you want to talk a little bit about that. I mean, everything that
everyone is focusing their energies, I think wherever you are, there's not one approach. I, like Hani, spend the majority of my time with the media right now, in addition to teach-ins, but just trying to amplify people's voices as much as I can. Lobbying Congress and representatives, literally feeding them the information they need, and sometimes important the language, sometimes something sticks. A combination, but just a reminder so we don't all feel hopeless. Change historically comes outside of the halls of power, not from inside of it. And that happens when the discourse and the narrative changes. So if you kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, writing to your elected representatives, asking them to endorse, support Representative Cori Bush's ceasefire now resolution. I think this is important. Having your voice heard. At the end of the day, this is our tax money in action, unfortunately. And just think about the long-term repercussions of what's happening. This has been the entire way this administration has handled this crisis should be a wake-up call to Americans about the kind of dangerous situations leaders in this country can put their citizens in. Immediately, the impact of the rhetoric, the Islamophobic, racist, hateful, anti-Palestinian rhetoric translated in the murder of 6-year-old Wadi al-Fayoumi in Chicago by a man who was the landlord of the building. The kid ran to him thinking that, this is like every day he's just coming to greet him. And instead, the old man stabbed him 26 times, tried to choke and stab to death his mother. So this crisis is setting dangerous precedents. Of course, it's unleashed a genocide. But here, I'm scared for my family, and I'm worried about their safety. But there will be a day when I'm much more scared. And that day will be one where this becomes the second or the third or the fourth headline in the news. Where life goes back to normal. Becomes just in the background. Headlines surrounded by this deafening silence, complacency, and forgetfulness. But they're coming after Palestinians in the United States. They're coming after Arabs and Muslims. This will unleash anti-freedom of speech forces, anti-democratic forces, democratic as in real democracy, not the Democratic Party. And I think Palestinians can't do this without their allies in this country. I'm just going to, if I may have 2 minutes. I had a conversation with my brother before this war started. My brother is 26-year-old. He finished college, and he lives in Gaza. He manages my family's small business, works full time, likes to watch Netflix. Normal life under very abnormal circumstances. And I was talking to my brother, and he's been wanting to migrate, leave Gaza, in search of opportunities and a better life. And I told him, listen, Amr, the entire world is becoming Gaza and Israel. In an inequality sense, in the sense that the rich are shielding themselves behind their gated communities, the poor are being pushed into slums. And if you dare to speak up, you're going to be killed. And the world is entrenching this notion. And I highly, highly, highly recommend reading an article that was co-authored by Sarah Roy and someone else. I forgot who. The title, and I'm not giving you the exact title here, about Gaza and the new politics of exclusion. Talks about Gaza as a model for exclusion in this world.
It's the new politics of exclusion, Gaza as prologue.
Gaza as a prologue for the new politics of exclusion. Read it. Read this article once and twice and let it sit. I think that's what we're dealing with here. This is beyond just 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. It's bigger than them. So I think we need you now, but we will need you more. If you're non-Palestinian, if you're privileged, if you have your rights are more respected in this country, we will need you more in a few months from now. So please keep this in mind.
And just to add to your point, if I might, I recently saw, before all this terribleness started, right, this violence, the film about boycott that Just Vision produced, and they were talking about all these. So there's the boycott, divestment, sanctions, BDS movement that seeks to boycott Israeli institutions, goods, right? So there was a film made about the efforts to ban the right to ban boycotts in the US, but to ban specifically boycotts of Israel. So there's legislation in, I think, 35 states that make, is it 35?
38.
38 states that makes it, it's not that it's illegal, but sanctions, like tries to limit the right of people to boycott. So it'll say, for example, the state of Arkansas won't let you be a contractor unless you sign a pledge to not boycott the state to not boycott Israel. Right, so there are 38 states that have some kind of anti-boycott legislation. And what they argued in the film, and what I sort of saw happening too, is this was a playbook for other restrictions on our freedoms, right? The film focused on a journalist, editor of a journal in Arkansas, who had no stake in Israel, Palestine, but took Arkansas to court because he said, this is my freedom of speech. How are you limiting my political right to boycott whoever I want to boycott, right? What they talked about is there are similar laws now being passed around the boycott of the NRA, around critical race studies, right? To try to ban the teaching of critical, like there's a playbook for trying to restrict to this point that this is about Palestine and Gaza, but this is a broader issue about our rights, thinking about all the suppression of the ability to speak right now. This movement about boycott, the most nonviolent of nonviolent things that one could do. We have legislation in 38 states banning or preventing people or trying to dissuade people through legal means from boycotting the state of Israel. As individuals, like not as institutions, as individuals, you have to sign a pledge saying, I'm not going to do this. And this has just been a playbook for all other kinds of restrictions on what we teach, what we wear, what kinds of events institutions can have. So I think it speaks very much to what you're saying, and we're kind of seeing it on steroids right now, right? And the kind of suppression we've seen right now in the past few weeks, the silencing of journalists. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes.
Name of the movie?
Boycott. Al Jazeera was showing it for free in segments on Al Jazeera English. It's called Boycott.
Just
Sorry.
to answer the very quick, yeah,
Yeah.
they have support, but they're not,
Oh, yeah,
Egypt is not with an end stuff, and they're worried that they're gonna bomb a great country like Egypt. They could say, this is property of Egypt going in, this is an ambulance, if you bomb this, it's not doing that. I think it's so sad that he sent his amazing wife to talk about apartheid. Right.
Yeah. Yes, please. I'm sorry.
My name's Shervan, a community member, I guess. And first, I just want to point out that there was an article in Huffington Post, and it addressed the State Department had put out a memo saying for officials not to use words such as de-escalation to avoid that rhetoric. And several officials had removed posts that they had used talking about a ceasefire and this type of language. Two brief questions. One is, I was wondering if each of you could talk about the U.S. media coverage, maybe one or two things that you see as most problematic with it, regarding this issue right now. And the second thing is the rhetoric of this administration, which seems to be designed to allow to maximize the number of war crimes, targeting of civilians, the kind of language that we keep hearing over and over from Blinken and Biden about human shields. Whereas this is the exact opposite of what they're saying in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Where does one start with the media? You know, just before I came here, I had a reporter from a local Baltimore station, WBAL, call me, and she had done a piece with me earlier in the week. Very nice woman, and came to my house and spent some time. So she called me out of the blue today, and I didn't know what she wanted, and she said, "I'm just calling to apologize." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because every day since I visited your house, I've been trying to get any kind of coverage about what's happening and to speak to Palestinians. And they just they won't let me. They keep blocking me and giving me different excuses." And I think she's kind of new to this, not new to the field of journalism, but new to this kind of silencing of and stifling of any coverage that seems sympathetic or humanizing. And she just kept going over and over. "I don't understand why they're doing this. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. I'm baffled." And she went on and on and on. And I think that was just telling, you know, I almost wanted to tell her, like, "Welcome to the club," you know, but yeah, I mean, this is what you're seeing. And again, this isn't new per se. I mean, anyone who's been around for a minute can tell you that, you know, but it's this kind of like, I think the demonization and dehumanizing terminology and coverage to me seemed really like on steroids this time. I don't know. It almost, I was discussing it with my husband and I said, you know, he's in like academic medicine, and we were just talking about it. It almost seemed like there was some kind of concerted, like a collusion, like an effort, all like as though there was some meeting between all the media and all of academia and all of the administration, and everyone got together and said, "This is the messaging we're going to use," you know. No mention of calm, you know, nothing that humanizes Palestinians. On the contrary, let's keep repeating the language. I mean, seriously, that's what it feels like to me. And it's dangerous. I mean, we keep saying like disinformation is dangerous, you know, it has real life consequences. I mean, it's nothing. I always say I don't really care about me. I mean, I've been getting hate mail. I got not just to my email, I got an actual letter yesterday, like threatening me, and there's no address on it. You know, I mean, this is what we're dealing with right now. Where you're talking out and you're literally endangering your life. And but again, there's something really sinister about it. I can't really put my finger on it, but it's like goes beyond just, you know, omission. It's like, you know, I don't know if someone here mentioned, now the latest thing is anytime you cite Palestinian deaths, it's with the caveat that it's Hamas run. I mean, I was like on point yesterday, and it wasn't like a, you know, any kind of aggressive show or anything. It was like a roundtable with Palestinians, and she kept prefacing any time that she would say Palestinians were killed, she would say, "But a reminder to our listeners, these are figures provided by the Hamas-run ministry, so we can't really trust them." And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, even our deaths are being, you know, erased, invisible. I mean, this is the level to which what we've gotten. When people say,
By Biden himself, though.
yes, and again, what's more troubling, when people keep saying to me every day, I'm sure Hani's the same, I'm getting slammed with media requests, and how are you? How's your family? I'm like, look, I can talk all day about my family. The reality is we've all come to terms with the fact that they will die at some point. We've come to terms with that. It's an awful reality. That's not what's most concerning right now. You know, we keep seeing in Arabic, there's an expression that says al-maut wahad, like death comes once. You know, if it's written, it's written. What's more concerning is all of this, to be honest with you. It really is terrifying, the fact that our president feels comfortable to not just once by accident or twice, but consistently and deliberately, and the Secretary of State say these things. I don't know. I'm scratching my head. It feels worse than 9/11 to me, you know, in a way.
That the human shields have been debunked, have been investigated, have been discredited over and over and over by Amnesty, by Human Rights Watch, had looked into this, but still it's being used as a talking point, almost every speech.
And the equation, what it becomes is Palestinians, you know, are Arabs, are barbarians, are animal, are other, are insert whatever, right? And you see that messaging trickle down from the top, from Israel to our elected officials, to the media, to then crazies all around. I mean, that's the language being used in all the hate mail I'm getting. You're a barbarian, you're baby murderers, you shouldn't deserve to live. I hope that you never have babies so that, you know, produce other, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you had anything to add.
I mean, I think it all comes down to anti-Palestinian racism. And I think it's the elephant in the room and nobody wants to talk about it, and it's real and it's been normalized for decades. Anti-Palestinian racism is real. Anti-Arab racism is real. There is genuine hate. There are groups and individuals in this country and beyond who have this visceral hate towards Palestinians. They just hate them. I don't know why. I think the entire assumption, the main assumption of the Zionist project was that Palestine was empty. We're just going to move in there, and those Arabs would just disappear. They didn't, so they're perceived as an obstacle in the path of that project. That's why they hate us. That's why we're hated. Although Palestinian rejection of erasure, Palestinian rejection of removal, Palestinian rejection of destroying entire lives and communities and cities and towns is a basic human thing. We're hated because we're embracing our humanity. That's why these people, so they like certain Palestinians. They like the ones who are policing the West Bank right now. Because for them, and Jake Sullivan said a few days before things transpired that the Middle East hasn't been that quiet and stable. And they were basically doing Israel's bidding. This administration, I mean, we need to talk about the media, but we need to talk about the colossal policy failure, the disaster. What were the priorities of the Biden administration policy-wise when it came to Palestine and Israel? Three things. Israel had its most right-wing, racist, unhinged government in its history, hated by Israelis and Palestinians together, and by a lot of liberals and progressives around the world. But then what did the Biden administration do? It prioritized two things. One, visa waiver program. It just told them, here's the visa waiver program. It's fine. You can exclude those Palestinians. Oh, the ones from Gaza, totally exclude them. They don't matter. That's number one. Two, normalization with Saudi Arabia. I had a meeting today with the national security advisor of a key member of Congress, and we had this conversation. We talked about the Saudi normalization. And she thought, oh, word was on Capitol Hill that it would be great, that it would benefit the Palestinians. And I said, what are you talking about? Palestinians perceived this as an existential threat. You're trying to normalize. You basically adopted Netanyahu's vision for normalization with the Arab world was that peace can be achieved with Arab states by bypassing Palestinians. So Palestinians become irrelevant and they become a secondary question, and that's it. They become forgotten. Basically, this administration adopted that vision. And they were pushing and pushing. I'm sure all of you remember in the past few weeks, this massive push towards Saudi-Israeli normalization because Biden wanted to stand on stage in 2024 and tell Trump, hey, you did the Abraham Accords, I did Abraham Accords on steroids. It was just purely selfish, narrow-minded electoral consideration. So we need to talk about this policy failure. Those people are paid salaries from your tax money to achieve stability, security, blah, 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 blah. And here we are. And these people need to, you're citizens of this country. They need to have a conversation with them.
I do have a question about that. Sorry. My name is Anthony. I'm a member of the community. So facts that Biden and Trump, I'm not trying to make too American politics focused, but when these PACs back both these candidates that we often get, and then you got pick between two people, but Trump takes as much money for Trump, he made Jerusalem the court, no matter what the president party is, they seemingly always go this way. So, and then the PACs, people who give them money, right? Like Joe Biden says this, what the people, but if he's getting money to say, hey, normalize relationship with Israel, these things, he's going to do that because they're paying him. As we talk about money in politics all the time, but now we're seeing the deadly effects of it and continuing to happen. What can we do? start to do. I don't know.
Well, two issues unite both parties in this country, corporate interests and Israel. I'm sure there are a lot of other issues too, but I mean, that's basically my read. This is, I think, this is a moment of truth. People in this country need to grapple with what defines the soul and trajectory and direction of this place. And it comes down to also like realizing the kind of power that exists and the kind of people who are in control of it and how much harm they could inflict on other people. So I think it's a question for Americans to ask themselves, what are we doing with this power? How are we allowing this to happen? And I think this conversation has been happening in this country for decades. I can't have answers about that tonight, but I think, this is something that needs to be addressed and talked about and thought about carefully by the citizens of this country who pay taxes. Otherwise, we're about to be engulfed in World War III, and we're just sitting here watching and unable to. People are doing great work, but this is not sustainable.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's a country where a member of Congress wore the IDF uniform. This is how, can you imagine somebody doing that in another country, wearing a foreign country? I think one of the founding fathers said something about that, like special relations, they warned against special relations in a foreign country. I think, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, I think in the elections, the Democrats have Hayam Saban, I think. He's a big Jewish funder for the conservative side, and Edelson in the Republican side. So a lot of people got support. There's others as well. But there's also other people who are not Jewish. I want to make that clear. But just in the sphere where I study, that's where it seems, the big money is coming from those two. That leads to impact of the is probably more writing a thesis or a dissertation in this. It is unfortunate, and
Yeah, I just want to make, what's interesting is that leading up to these recent events, right, there were these surveys done that showed that people who identify as Democrat were more and more critical of Israel, right? And they said, would you consider Israel an apartheid state? It was a study that came out of the University of Maryland, right? So we have lots of evidence that opinion is changing amongst ordinary people in the US, but clearly nothing is changing in our government. Right?
The public opinion.
Even about the ceasefire, right?
6%.
I think it says a lot about how undemocratic our system is, right? Like that the system does not represent people's interests. It represents corporate interests, which are tied up with war as well.
You have Russia arguing for ceasefire and America saying no. You feel like I thought President cared for these poor Ukrainian civilians and hospitals and group collective punishment, and it's all just hot air. This is where it becomes hard to feel the truth, and it shows like where they're going.
I think we have a question here. Yeah.
Hi, I'm AK. Thank you so much for being here today. I work with the Center for Social Justice on our campus. I also, before I ask my question, I also just want to say that in terms of electoral politics, it's time we stop having to choose between the lesser of two evils. And I want to stress that this time and what is happening in Palestine is incredibly important even for the earth. We are running out of time. And if there's any time to take revolutionary action and imagine a radical different future, it is now. So I encourage everyone to get organized and, join with your community to imagine more. But in terms of my question, I want to ask about the West Bank, which I think you mentioned briefly. I have loved ones in the West Bank, and everything I'm hearing is even, just increasingly more terrifying. And I want to ask, in your conversations with government, with media, with different industries, what is the usual response that you get when you try to discuss the West Bank, and how do we contribute to speaking more about it and elevating what's happening there as well?
I think the comment I remember from one of the briefings is the PA is deficient, where they're being denied the resources to do whatever they need to, meaning that the Israelis keep their taxes, they cut the taxes that This tax and just keep it. Because they think the fee is scary. Then they can't have equipments. They're always happy to give you as much equipments and weapons to kill other Arabs and suppress them, the PA. And then that's one. If really I want to believe there's sincerity in U.S. foreign policy, I would look at why did they shut down the PA's embassy here, Palestinian embassy? Why? It has nothing to do with Hamas. This is tell you this is Palestine is such a dirty word here, and like he's their buddy. Like they give him like he's harmless. Like the Palestinians think he's a Switzerland right now in Gaza. Doesn't care. And I'm not this party or that, but it's obvious. So the PA in the West Bank, there's two people fighting them right now, Israel and the PA. If you want to go rally for Gaza, you either get visited by a PA officer or Israeli officer. In Gaza, just the Israelis with all their might. Your comment about the green, the environment, about what half a nuclear bomb was dropped in Gaza so far. I can't keep track of
It's now equal to the impact of.
every 1 kilometer of Gaza has seen 33 tons of explosive. And the best story I've heard from Gaza before all this started, that Gaza recycles a lot better than America because we have plastic, glass, a lot of that because of the siege. So there is a lot. I was happy to see that, and I have friends who are in the community who like the Insider. I think did a really good thing. And we're trying. Yeah.
One of the most troubling things I've been reading about in the West Bank is how many people have been arrested. Like it was 1,100 people a few days ago. So they're just rounding people up.
Almost 100 people have been killed.
Yeah.
And 100 people killed, yeah.
I mean, also to add, this is,
Not to mention the settlements. I mean, again, we could go on and on, but I'll just give one very short anecdote. I had a chance to go there last summer and I took my kids there and we visited a farmer, Palestinian American in Area C near Ramallah. And we were helping him plant olive trees and he was explaining how, this is in and of itself an act of resistance because Palestinian farmers are very scared to farm their farms in Area C because they're adjacent to the Israeli settlements and they'll often get, the receiving end of Israeli settler violence. And he, was explaining this to us and how he helps farmers, keep the land, work the land basically. Just 2 weeks after we visited him, the land right next to a group of Israeli settlers came. They put a trailer there. They went to the high court, and I kid you not, within 1 month, the high court said, okay, this is a new settlement in Area C. So this is what we're seeing. This is kind of this slow, silent, suffocation, land theft, what you don't see, what doesn't make the headlines, right? The words of Diana Bhutto, death by 1,000 cuts, right? So, I mean, I guess that's all I have to say about that. But yes, I mean, the Palestinian prisoners, the continued annexation of land, the settlements. They're suffocating there. They really are. But instead of like one big Gaza, it's lots of little ones that are just completely suppressed, brutally suppressed, with two fronts, like a 1-2 punch. So PA Israel.
Maybe we can do more? Yeah. Oh, yeah, please.
Our student wants.
Yes. You want to go first? If we have time, we'll come back to Josh.
All right. Hi, guys. First of all, thank you so much for being here. My name is Bobby. I'm a community member. The biggest question that is ringing in my head right now is that for a lot of the people I'm sure in this room, the discourse that we are seeing online is somewhat within a bubble. A lot of the people that we interact with online or in person are echoing our same sentiments. So we feel like we're making an impact, and we can see the people who are gathering in the streets in Yemen and London who are rallying for the Palestinian cause. Is there a forum or any methodologies that you guys have seen that have made an impact in changing narrative or bringing more awareness to people who are not within these bubbles, who are not seeing what we are seeing?
Yeah, okay, I can talk about that. I spent many, by the way, I just really quickly wanted to say to your point about language, but it got lost for you and for anyone else. I was looking up, there's a great radio interview in 1984 with Edward Said that talks all about language in the media that you should listen to. And he talks a lot about the word terrorist, and he really breaks it down. I encourage you to listen to that. And obviously Chomsky and manufactured consent and all of that is just, that's all that keeps swirling through my mind, honestly, the past 2 weeks. But anyways, after I spent years working and living in Gaza, really just covering hard news, and I felt like the headline was the same. I wanted, to your point, I just kept feeling this frustration that I couldn't convey what was happening in a way that I felt was effective. Very close friends of mine, Egyptians and others, who just like didn't seem to understand very basic facts. And so that's when I started to, initially was keeping a blog, and then began to use the lens of food to write about Gaza. And at the time, then, as it is now, it seemed frivolous and a little bit ridiculous, except to everyone in the outside world, except for Palestinians in Gaza, who totally understood that what this was about and appreciated it and loved that it was humanizing and told their story in a very different way. I kind of not forgot about it, but it's been a while, and I still get asked to speak about that. And then I, of course, took Anthony Bourdain there many years ago, may he rest in power. And someone posted a clip from that a few days ago. I don't know who this person was. It was not even someone that was like really well known on Twitter. And it got I think up to 6 million views at this point, which I thought was very telling and interesting, and not views by people who were in an echo chamber, but people who genuinely I mean, it's funny because sometimes I'm searching for something on Google and then I get these questions that what are people asking Google about Gaza? You'd be surprised. Like there's a thirst for knowledge. What I always tell people is like dig a little deeper. And that's where this whole radio thing with Edward Said is really interesting. When he breaks down what does the word terrorist mean, it strips that person or people of a cause or an idea of any, you know what I mean? And it's directly related to this and to this whole concept of dehumanizing and what it allows an oppressive regime to then do when nothing, when we're desensitized to that and no rules of war apply anymore. But anyways, so that's one way. And I just got contacted by a New Yorker just now and someone else who's trying to work on a campaign, again, to be able to talk about this, what's happening in a different way, using that lens of food and cuisine by chefs. Jose Andreas just got in touch with me, and he wants to do something that isn't just, let's give the food, but he wants to be able to come out and say something that's actually courageous and shift opinion. So that's one way, is to kind of do it through other lens. Yeah.
And then another one, if you guys are Instagram, follow Mortaz Azaiza, somebody I've known overnight, 7 million followers. If the war ends in Gaza, he should take a big credit for that, because he shows how brutal, how unjust, how criminal this is to little children. Incredible guy overnight, and then all of a sudden, all these celebrities are learning about Gaza through his lens. Guess what?
Yeah.
He's been threatened. His family's been threatened by the Israelis a few times. Instagram, Meta shuts him down. They screw with him. They bring it down. They censor some of the stuff. This is one person, and guess how old he is? 22 years old. And he's the breadwinner for his family, and he happens to be a freelance for us. And just a great guy. And he just, good looking, speaks English, and just one lens, one person with a drive, and just did all that. Obviously, that's another round.
No, okay.
Which Said interview is it? Sorry, it's not the Salman Rushdie one, is it?
No, it's okay, so it's broadcast October 1st, 1984. Edward Said discusses Palestine, history of and struggles in the Middle East, and talks about the importance of language and shifting perceptions. I'm trying to find, if you look up on Stud's Turkel Radio Archive, it comes up. So STUDS Turkel, TERKEL. It should come up. But, thank you.
I think we need to let our speakers go. I know there are other questions, but it's after 9 and you all have been working so
If
hard.
there's any other
I'll
last,
be here for a minute.
yeah, we're happy
You
to.
guys are okay to take another question? Or you're gonna stay here?
Do that, so I want people not to leave, like, feel free to.
Yeah,
leave.
if there's
Or you can,
something,
I don't know.
we're happy to, and that's why we're here, to educate. So if there's anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hadi. I'm a MBA student here at the business school. What I wanted to ask is, I have, close Palestinian friends, and at a more individual level, I think the Muslim community as a whole is incredibly hurting. But at an individual level, our Palestinian brothers and sisters are absolutely decimated at an individual level, both in the corporate world, college campuses. And we honestly don't know what we can say or do to help even just, make them feel better, make them feel more comfortable. So do you have any advice on anything we can do to just help?
Very quick. So Islamophobia is real and people struggle with it. I want to acknowledge that.
And
Well-
sorry, I just want to say, my friend who works in education consulting keeps saying she wants to change that to anti-Muslim hate. She's saying Islamophobia isn't.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
Muslim advocacy.
Yeah. Anyways, well, yeah.
Yeah, Muslim bigotry or something. So it is real. I want to acknowledge that. But this episode is between Israel and the Palestinians. It's about the colonial project. I love my Pakistani brothers. They're amazing. They're the first to show up with donations in our work, prayer, dua, all that. One meeting at the White House. I'm not gonna name. Oh yeah, we prayed in the synagogue. And I felt like, and somebody told with all due respect, this is not. I'm happy you have those relationships, which is good. But the topic here, we're talking about the imperialism project in Palestine. One thing you can do, and I appreciate my colleague Laila El-Haddad and my boss, actually Jewish, Marako and Phil. We all got through DEI training, and one thing that they really made sure they do for me as their colleague is always lead with my voice. Meaning, they get interviews, they get anything, they say Hani first. If I don't have time, they would do it. Even though our director of communication is half Palestinian, half they always want to uplift Palestinian voices, because I have people who are like, oh yeah, they talk about the Palestinians as stuff. This is a moment where you could uplift their voices. If there is an opportunity to have them come talk, check in with them. To be honest with you, sometimes it gets overwhelming with so many people say oh, I worry about your family. How are you? I can't, Instagram message, TikTok, it's a lot. But sometimes I've word hey, don't respond, but I just want you to know I'm sending you my dua or my prayer. I appreciate it. Just because it's insane. You don't know 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 11. I look at this, it's just
I mean, I'm not exaggerating. The first thing I do when I get up is I go through Sema News and I type in my family name to see if any of them have died. I mean, that's just become our reality right now. One practical thing you can do is, as he said, to amplify voices. If you know Palestinian community members here who have family in Gaza, you can try to, reach out to newspapers, ask if you can place an op-ed, help them edit those op-eds. We can help as well. IMU can help. They're swamped right now, so they need anyone who can help edit op-eds. And just, reach out to newspapers and local news channels. That's something that's really practical. We have people in our community who just ask, what can I do to help? They just started their own ad hoc, campaigns and have been daily getting community members who aren't very well trained, training them in how to call congressmen, and just every day, hundreds of calls. That's another very practical thing you can do that we don't have time for right now. So.
Just to add a brief point, just check on your friends, make sure they're okay. The scale of the killing, and just Palestinians are in the millions, but they're also big family. So everybody knows someone either got killed or knows someone who got killed or injured or lost their home. So because the scale of the calamity is massive, I think checking on people, making sure they're okay, making sure that if they need help, they can reach that help. Showing empathy. I know people say no words, but words can be fatal, as we saw in Chicago. And words can be healing, and they can bring life to people. They can show support, and they can,
Even George Bush visited the most. After 9/11, even George Bush visited the most and told people they're good Muslims, good people. This guy, animals, savages, barbarians.
Yeah, so words matter. Words matter.
We should end on that note. you to AK for organizing us tonight.
We're not, we can't just like sit there. Okay, nice to meet you. Hopefully tomorrow, together maybe next month. Right? You know what? I hope I don't stick around. I hope you don't see me next time. Yeah. Like, needs to be something that represents what's going on.
Right, like the.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna go. But they know that.
Increase the idea of thinking of.
Yeah, no, definitely. Someone texted me on there. No. I don't know. Just, you could just give your name and. Oh, no. And I'm back in that already. Yeah. No. Especially about the diversity. The thing is, it's so annoying. Sorry. Keeps coming up to me. I'll explain. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. Just let me know so I can find people out. I was like, I encourage others to. Like, the why. Wow. It doesn't matter, like, saying that if somebody's going, technically they're going in the other house, but they can't go. I mean, that's the level of going as an individual. If somebody بيروح على الواقع تبعنا, technically they're going in the name of.
So he doesn't want any.
Yes, I'm just to let him know so that he can tell.
Yes, yes.
He doesn't.
Told him that like explicitly to his face, like he can't get into his head.
So much for coming. What do they see? He's like, this Tupperware belongs to Mara. No, I don't have, I just made you guys over and I might have to go on. No, ours is having swamps. So I offered to, you know, a lot of times you have people for edits a lot. So really good.
So it's only that one.
It's more about.
Yeah, no.
African studies beats me. She was supposed to come to my house for dinner and I was like, I can't deal with this right now. And she, yeah, my pleasure.
They can't hide. She dropped off a big thing that I support you guys. I just can't do anything about it.
It's all fake news, man. The Palestinians dying.
Years ago, so amazing. Thinking about how like he's done one surgeons up on his forces, but he can't sing. Like force us. He's high.
Yeah.
Let's say like told
My youngest.
The deadlines are usually December, December. And you know, yeah, I would say you're welcome. But it's
Yeah. Oh, okay, it's Sarah Running. Seen it. Yeah. Open Gaza, open Gaza.
And I also mentioned the canary list. I mentioned everything, and I was like, at this point, we don't care. Again, if you put a small canary list, I don't care. I didn't start up at this meeting in July.
I'm in Flex on Howard County.
For like in charge.
Yeah.
So he was like, by the way, I had that spelled my name on the canary list, spelled out his name. And then he was like, my dad's that's why I just like to have something in there.
New York.
It's gonna be, yeah. You want me to know when it's hair eventually, but like,
Random?
just, it's on Canary. Okay. So. All right. How helping us come together. I don't know, really. Fine. Teaching there recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just like brainstorm. Just like, two great tables there.
No, it's really maybe that wasn't. It was like. Yeah, well, it's actually the summer.
I'm thinking-
created the option.
I don't know if we're gonna.
Yeah, that's why it's really No, I feel like we would rather have it.
Yeah, I don't want to do. Gonna make it.
Like for safety issues, so we can regulate those in and out. So like the news is gonna be. No, بس هو
That's one.
It's like,
yeah, it's on track.
yeah, it's in.
The track. Yeah. لا you should see this is احكي يا ربع انتوا جايين كان جينا مع بعض انا اتفاجأت لما شفته I was so like يعني I took a wrong turn لا ما هو في يعني لا at that point it's okay لانه خلص صدمة بس انا قصدي قبلها I took a wrong turn مرتين ومش عارفة ايش لو عارفة كان جينا مع بعض لانه اليوم الاربعاء اجتماع ورا اجتماع ورا اجتماع
والله المفروض احنا بتعرفي لاخر لحظه احنا يلا بنقدر نرجع الشغل يلا امشوا
ده بسيط
يعني لاخر وبعدين حطيت بنتي هلا عند هلا رح نروح نجيبها لانه يلا زينات
والله انا متعودة انا هيك عملت امبارح على ستيت
Maybe on Friday, and then maybe
1 minute remembering
can we have like a sign making session, like people can make
هو عشان هو بالامل في الله انا ضل بقول لولا ايمان واحد كان oh I see there's a you know, he used to be at the U.S. cafe. I was like, cut out doves or something. Friends with her mom or family. Yeah, we had been in touch for a little while. We just reconnected, and she was in the down in the market.
they shot it down. Like at most maybe like a local thing. Internet isn't gonna send like.
Exactly, but this message is هذه المشكلة إنه it's زي ما أنت قلت بالضبط they're shutting about إنه مش بشر مش بني آدمين. They don't even get the right to sympathy of even death. يعني they don't even believe that they're even in death يعني. It's on a completely different scale. Five separate parts around two and institutional on there. Maybe they've got to rotate it backwards. Meetings because some people are like 8 o'clock. I can't do that, but
Try to hijack it, like I don't know. I'm thinking they just need to. Yeah, well,
need to bring it so I can and even if you don't do the wider thing, nothing justifies slaughtering 7,000 people. يعني كأنه مثلا واحد بيجي مثلا neighborhood
saw someone.
okay, I'm gonna kill you and kill your friends and I'm okay doing that because you did X, Y, Z. This is the night. I'm like.
هذا الشيء اللي بقهرني انا الا لا تفهم الا لا تستوعب.
Yeah, I mean, I work with the. Yeah. So if.
معناته هيك I give them one, I give them like one resource, you know. I think of just one article, I want to just tell them to read this. خلاص. بقول يعني sometimes I tell people of Palestine, it's very old, it's,
She's not gonna read it.
oh, okay.
She's very razor sharp.
Yeah, I see. Okay, let me, yeah, there's so many great videos that have come out. خليني أشوف لك واحد
هاي بالذات إنسانة بتحب إنها اللي تسمع البريزيدنت يعني intelligent. إنسانة شاطرة. كويسة.
أنا في
I can talk to yeah, we having a student because I played an issue.
على فكرة
I talked to him, like, kind of like,
I mean,
We talked to them about.
He called you, so Samira is connected to like June. Every time she's connected to different alumni. I also know some alumni.
Yeah,
who
I mean,
reached out to me when like
What I said, I
2020,
need to
with the Black Lives Matter stuff, they reached out at that time, but they would, I think, if you're interested in broadening kind of an alumni network, one of them is in the public policy school, one is a math student.
organize requests.
They have networks because they both did master's degrees here. But, yeah, so you say you want somebody to look at it, is that?
So
Yeah, I'm happy to look at it. And,
Center for Social Justice.
I'm saying to Samira is, and I said this to, I was meeting with the under.